Welcome, fantabulous souls, to Psychically Speaking. I'm your host, Psychic Lisa Ann, and I'm thrilled to have you here. In this podcast, we'll delve into everything related to body, mind, and spirit. As a professional psychic medium and healer with over 28 years of experience, I'm excited to share my knowledge and my experiences with you. Together, we'll embark on a transformative journey of sharing, learning, and personal growth. Whether you're just starting on your spiritual path, consider yourself an old soul, an empath, or a seasoned professional, Psychically Speaking has something special just for you. So join me as we explore the wonders of life, heal ourselves, expand our knowledge, and grow together. Let's dive right in. Today, we're talking about confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is when people tend to look for, interpret, believe, and remember information in a way that confirms their pre-existing beliefs. In other words, individuals are more likely to pay attention to, accept, and remember information that aligns with their existing views, while dismissing or downplaying information that contradicts their beliefs. Now, I'm sad to say that I have been a victim of confirmation bias many times in my life, but I think the most relatable example that I can give you is years and years ago when I was in my miserable single dating life and just had this pre-existing belief system that all relationships were bad, no relationships ever work. I remember when I would be sitting in a restaurant, I would automatically be drawn to the couple in the corner that was fighting. Or if I was out and about, I would see the couples, walking through the mall that weren't paying attention to each other. And I would look at that and I would go, see, nobody's happy. I would surround myself with people that had that same belief system. Oh, all men are horrible. No, nobody's happy in relationships. And the very interesting thing about that is now when I look back, after I did some deep diving into my soul work and straightening out my belief system, I remember after that, I would be in a restaurant and now I would be noticing this very old couple sitting in the corner holding hands and talking. Or I'd notice an elderly couple and the man pulling the chair out. And I would think to myself, wow, that's what I want, right? I want someone to grow old with. And I would be out and about and I would see these couples, talking to each other and just completely nothing around them existed. So I always think back to that because was it that all of a sudden, there were all these happy couples, or is it that my confirmation bias was just leading me to only notice the negative when I was in that negative space? It's funny how our minds can do that. Have you ever wanted to go get a new car, right? Or buy a used car, whatever it is. And you're like, oh, I really want a blue car. And then all week long, you notice every blue car on the road, right? So confirmation bias can really lead to flawed decision making because it hinders objectivity and the consideration of alternative viewpoints. And this is very common. In fact, it can be observed in various aspects of life, including, dare I say, politics, science, relationships, and everyday decision making. Overcoming confirmation bias requires conscious effort, critical thinking, and a willingness to seek out and, most importantly, consider opposing viewpoints. Now, here are 3 practical tips for overcoming confirmation bias. These tips are going to help you to make more rational decisions. So step number 1 is awareness. Recognize your bias. Acknowledge that confirmation bias is a common human tendency. We all have it to some extent, so don't feel singled out. Identify trigger situations. Be aware of situations where confirmation bias is likely to come into play. It often occurs when discussing personal beliefs, political topics, or when emotionally invested in a decision. Step 2, seek diverse perspectives. This is a huge one. Challenge your own views. Actively question your beliefs and opinions. Consider why you hold certain beliefs and whether they are based on solid evidence. Listen to opposing views. This is huge. Make an effort to seek out and engage with people who have different perspectives. This can be through conversations, through books, articles, or even podcasts. The goal is to understand the different viewpoints, not necessarily to change your mind or the other person's mind. And oh my Lord, in the day of social media, fact check. Verify information from multiple sources before accepting it as true. Look for credible, well-researched sources and be open to considering evidence that contradicts your beliefs. I always laugh. I remember years ago I was scrolling through Facebook, and someone who I honestly consider to be an extremely intelligent person had an article about like some huge whale that was found in like a lake in Michigan or something insane. Like I looked at it and I was just like, oh my God. And at first I thought they were posting it as a joke. But then as I started reading the comments, I was like, oh my God, these people really believe that this giant whale was found in a lake. Like, this is crazy. And I went on and I just did a quick little fact check and found, that it wasn't a true story. And I just like private messaged them. I was like, you might want to take that down. So it's funny because whenever I see something that just looks a little crazy, I always fact check it for myself. I think we need to do a little bit more of that. And it's funny because as far as like challenging my own views and listening to opposing views, I have to say, being a professional psychic for the last 28 years hasn't been the easiest decision probably that I've ever made in my life. And to this day, I always get people coming at me. They want to I don't even want to say they want to challenge me. They want to argue with me. And I always joke around that I was raised to be respectful, that I'm always smart enough to not talk about politics and respectful to not talk about religion. And I really honestly was raised in a way that I do not need to agree with you, and I don't need you to agree with me for me to love and respect you. Like, everybody can have their own viewpoints. And in fact, I honestly love listening to opposing viewpoints. I remember many, many years ago, this guy had come into my shop and he was a deacon or something at a church. And he walked in and he said, are there any witches here? And I just looked at him and I was like, excuse me? And he's like, are there any witches here? I'm like, well, my boyfriend at the time tends to call me a witch, but I don't think he means it in that way. So right away, I just was like, okay, here we go. And I said to him, you know what? I purposely named my business Spirit Quest because I really welcome everybody on a spiritual journey. So no, I'm not Wiccan. I was actually raised Catholic, but what can I help you with? And he said that he was writing an article for his church, and I don't even remember what denomination he was. But you know what? It was a slow day that day, and I had nothing to do. So I ended up getting in this hour-long conversation with him. And even though we had totally opposite beliefs, I learned so much that day. And I honestly was not listening to him to argue with him, nor did I argue with him. I really always find it very interesting and honestly very educational when I listen to people's opposing viewpoints. So challenge your own views, listen to those opposing viewpoints, and, fact check information before you go off on an angry rant, right? Step 3, slow down and reflect. Pause before deciding. Do not rush to judgment or decisions. Give yourself time to think, especially when you're facing important choices. This is huge. I actually call this my 24-hour rule. Whenever I have a big decision to make, or whenever I'm really upset about something or something's happened, I always sleep on it. Next, consider alternatives. List alternative options or viewpoints and evaluate the pros and cons objectively. Avoid jumping to conclusions based on preconceived notions. Consult others. Get input from people who you trust who may have a different perspective. Discuss your thought process and the evidence that you've gathered. Notice I say discuss, not attack, not defend, but discuss. And keep a journal. Consider keeping a journal of your decision-making process. Document your initial thoughts, the evidence you've considered, and how you arrived at your conclusion. This can help you track your progress in reducing confirmation bias over time. Now, by following these steps and making them a part of your daily decision-making process, you can become more aware of confirmation bias and work towards making more rational and informed choices. And these strategies can really help you to combat the bias and strive for a more balanced and open-minded approach to decision-making. And I will tell you on a personal level, as soon as I was aware of what I was doing, and I'll be honest with you, I did not even know that that's what it was called back then, okay? It was many years later that I heard the term confirmation bias. I actually have a little postcard that I leave on my desk that says confirmation bias to always keep me in the mindset of, am I being objective? Am I listening to other viewpoints? Am I getting all sides of this, belief system I have or this choice that I'm making? Now, confirmation bias and intuition, they are related in how they affect our thinking and decision making, but they work in different ways. So the confirmation bias is a tendency to seek out, believe, or remember information that supports our existing beliefs or ideas, as we discussed earlier. It can cause us to ignore or downplay facts that don't match our preconceived notion, and it can lead to making decisions based on what we already think rather than being open to different perspectives or facts. Intuition is a gut feeling or an instinctive sense about something, often without conscious reasoning. Intuition relies on our subconscious mind and past experiences to make quick decisions or judgments. And while intuition can sometimes be valuable, it can also be influenced by bias, including confirmation bias, what can lead us to make biased or inaccurate intuitive judgments. So confirmation bias involves our tendency to favor information that confirms our existing beliefs, while intuition is a more instinctive, quick decision-making progress. So both can be influenced by biases and lead to those errors in judgment. And it's important to be aware of these cognitive tendencies so that we can strive for a more balanced and rational decision-making. So in conclusion, confirmation bias is a common cognitive trap that we can fall into, where we, again, tend to favor information that supports what we already believe, leading to flawed decision-making and the persistence of unfounded beliefs affecting our choices in politics, in science, in relationships, and quite frankly, in our daily lives. Remember that overcoming confirmation bias requires a conscious effort to think critically, to consider different perspectives and be open to new evidence and ideas. It's very essential to be aware of how our biases can shape our judgments, even when it comes to our intuitive feelings. Intuition is very valuable, but remember, it can be swayed by our biases. Being mindful of these cognitive tendencies and striving for more balanced and rational decision making is the key to making better choices and understanding the world more accurately. So choose to think carefully, consider different ideas, be open to a wide range of evidence and opinions, and I promise you, you will be better equipped to navigate life's complicated decisions. Thank you once again for joining me on this incredible journey. If you found this podcast enjoyable, I kindly ask you to share it with a friend and make sure to hit that subscribe button. To discover more about joining my free weekly live happy hour, explore my work, or visit my Body, Mind, Spirit spa and gift shop in the enchanting historic downtown Southern Pines, North Carolina, simply head over to spiritquestnc.com. And always remember, life isn't always rainbows and butterflies, but every single day, you have the power to choose to be fantabulous. Embrace that power and let your inner light shine bright. Until we meet again, stay empowered and keep embracing the magic of life.